I think I got my description on. I wanted to let you guys know when you hop on, please give a wave or say hi so I know who's here. And let us know how long you've been gardening, if at all. It's totally fine if the answer is 0, or it's fine if you've been gardening your whole life. I'd love to know. And if you'd like to share where you're from, because of course that makes a huge difference when it comes to gardening. Okay, I'm going to hang out right here, I think, if I can get this set up as you guys are hopping in. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Ann Essentials. Okay. Glad to see you guys hopping in. And by the way, some of you knew this was happening because you asked for the information. Anyone who comments seed, let's see if this is good. Oh, anyone who comments seed, when this is done, don't comment now because unfortunately I don't see the comments once this post says alive. Okay. I will send you our schedule for the rest of the lives in this series of workshops, and I will send you all the details that we're talking about today. I'll let you know what's coming up in the next 2 workshops, all the good stuff. So please, if you're watching this live, give me a few minutes when we're all done, because it takes a few minutes for it to process, and then come back, find it on my page, and comment the word seed so I can make sure that you're going to get all the information. I just made myself a cup of chicory tea, my absolute favorite. And I think I'm all ready. I have a few things for show and tell. I have my notes of what I want to make sure that we're covering today. Basically 3 things. We're going to talk about questions to ask of your seed company. And we're going to talk about questions to ask yourself when you're choosing what to plant. And finally, I'm going to share with you 3 quick things I never thought of until a few years ago, and they've drastically changed my gardening. I think I just realized I could bring you a little closer. Maybe I'll actually be able to read your comments. Stockburger Teresa is in New York, Brewster, New York, 50 miles north of Manhattan Island. And do you do any gardening? Do you grow some food there? It's probably that's a great, I'd imagine, good location with a nice growing season. Linda is in Central Valley, California. Whitetail Ridge Farm has been gardening about 20 years. Awesome. I don't know what I'd say to answer that question for myself. I grew up with a garden. My dad was a huge gardener. I mean, it was like pretty much his lifeline. If he couldn't garden, in fact, his last year of life, he wasn't able to garden, and he deteriorated very quickly. And I always thought it was because he wasn't in with his hands in the dirt and doing his gardening. Anyway, so I've grown up around gardening myself. As soon as I had property, as soon as I got married, I had my own garden. So a long time. That's what I would answer. Okay. First thing, let's just dive in because I don't want this to go too long. I love chatting with you guys. I have fun with these lives, and I tend to go too long, and I know nobody wants to watch a replay that's too long. So questions, I'll come back. You guys are commenting. I love that. Please keep commenting. I'll come back and check those out in a little bit. Okay. Questions to ask your seed company. I have 3 questions. And these are things you might be able to find by looking at their catalog or their website, or you might need to call them. But if you have a seed company you love, just check out a few things about them and make sure that it's truly the best. I actually switched seed companies last year I got my garlic from this new company. Loved it and decided to look more into this new company, and they are now my primary seed company from the information I found out and the way they checked the boxes on these questions I'm going to run off for you. So I will send you information about my new seed company. When you comment seed, I'll send you all the details because they have a savings code for you guys. I reached out and they were very happy to offer you a savings code if you want to try them out. Ask your seed company, where do they source their seeds? A lot of times it is not a place you want your seeds coming from, so that's something to ask. And ask, do they test every variety? I mean, seed companies sell a ton of stuff, and it's, I'm sure, close to impossible to test every variety that they sell. I mean, think about how many varieties of tomato plants there are. And if it's a rather large seed company, they're selling a lot of varieties of tomatoes. Are they really testing each one to make sure it's a viable, strong, good stock of a plant? And third, what are their germination rates? That's a huge one for me. Living in New England, that's one reason I wanted to ask where you guys were from, because if you have a short growing season, you know how important germination rate is. I don't get second chances. I mean, maybe. I really try. Sometimes I try and I'm lucky that something does come up. If it didn't germinate the first time and I plant more, it might come up, but it's very unlikely I'm going to get much produce from that plant because it's weeks behind. And I only have just the right amount of weeks for most of these things to mature. So germination rate is very important. That tells you what percentage of the seeds that are planted are going to grow well. And so there's always going to be a percentage of seeds that simply don't germinate. That's just a fact. But a seed company can really test their stock of seeds and make sure that they are only selling high quality ones that are going to germinate well. So with the seed company that I have switched to, they are super particular about what seed suppliers they work with, and they're very picky about that. They also have, I really liked this when I found this out, they have a 75-acre test farm. It's literally 75 acres. That's all they use it for, is to test every single variety of seed that they sell, everyone. And I talked to someone at the company and they explained that there are absolutely many things they choose not to sell because they just can't grow them well in their test farm. Now, it could be that your location, because it's different than their location, that there are some varieties you might want that they're simply not going to sell because they can't guarantee it's going to be a hardy variety of a plant. So in that case, then I do have a secondary seed company because I did have some things I wanted to buy this year that this company didn't sell. So I always am ordering seeds from more than one. It's just I've kind of switched to this being my primary seed company. And their germination standards, I was very impressed. There is an industry standard for the germination rate and theirs far exceeds it. So again, that's the most important thing to me, because if it's not going to come up, I'm not going to have anything growing in that section of my garden, and that's going to be a problem for me. I also like that they offer 0 GMO varieties. A lot of seed companies deal with large-scale farming, and large-scale farming wants GMO seeds. This company is not like that. They actually refuse to sell GMO seeds because they really want to do what's best for the soil regeneration, what's best for the ecosystem. And they firmly believe, as I do, that GMO varieties of plants are not good for that. They're not good for our soil. They're not good for a whole lot of things. So they don't just talk about doing the right things. They put their money where their mouth is and they don't sell them. So I really respect that. Okay, questions to ask to choose what you want to grow this year. And this whole series, it's going to be 3 workshops. I really wanted to focus on not only saving money, but also making money. Next workshop, we're going to do our deepest dive into the making money part. But as far as saving money with what you're growing, you want to think about a few things. First of all, some varieties of plants that you could grow, you plant one plant and you get a whole lot of produce, not just the first round of bloom, but throughout the season. Tomatoes are a great example of that. Now, there are all different kinds of tomatoes, and there are definitely ones that produce a lot more than others, so that's something else to consider. But for now, I'm just going to think about different kinds of plants. Now, if you compare that to something that's like a tuber, you could think of an onion, or you could think of a beet, or legumes. Not really legumes. Let's say leeks. Leeks would be a good example. Those things are going to give you most likely one piece of food. You're going to get one beet for that area in your soil where you've planted the beet. I personally don't like beets. My parents loved them. Not a fan. I will never plant a beet, but that's just me. Onions, I do plant. I actually love onions, but they serve a dual purpose for me. If I was only planting them for the food themselves, I'd have to question if I really wanted to take up my garden space with them, because they're so easy for me to buy organically and they're not expensive. But onions serve that dual purpose of keeping the predators out of my garden. I like to plant a row of onions all around the border of all of my gardens if possible. Most years I never quite get all the way around because it takes time. But So that dual purpose makes it very worthwhile for me to take up space for something that's only going to give me one onion. Unlike in that same amount of space, I could have almost a tomato plant. Not really. It would take like the space of 3 onions to have your tomato plant. But I'm going to get so many more tomatoes than those 3 onions would produce, right? So that's one thing, is to think about the yield that the plant is going to produce, whatever it is you're thinking about planting. And sometimes that might make you change your mind, like, oh, you know what, maybe I won't plant onions, maybe I'll plant cucumbers. But it also might make you simply research the variety more and find a variety that's going to give you more bang for your buck, or that's going to start producing earlier in the year. That's a big thing for me. I always look at days till germination, and I always go with the variety that's going to give me a shorter days to germination, so that I have more likelihood that in my short growing season, I'm going to have mature produce. Okay. Also, think about the space the plant takes up. I really like squash. I don't love it as much as my daughter, who's my companion in the garden. She loves squash. I like it. So we always plant some squash. But that's really just because it's something our family likes. If we were planting to get the biggest bang for our buck, squash is never something I would go with, because it takes up a huge amount of space. I mean, to take one squash plant, not that you can see my table right now, but it takes up the space of this table plus some. And I mean, they're pretty prolific. They get a lot of bloom. You do get a lot of squash, that is for sure. And I think that might be something we consider moving. See, the problem is we could just plant one squash plant and have enough, but if it's not a hardy seed, if the plant doesn't do well, if a critter gets to it and eats it when it's young, there's all these variables. So we usually plant at least 3 squash plants. But the truth is, if I knew it was going to reach maturity and do well, I really only need 1. So all these things to consider, but I'm getting off topic. Think about that squash plant compared to climbing green beans or peas or cucumbers. I mentioned cucumbers. Cucumbers, I actually grow them really well vertically. So things like that are vining are going to take up a lot less space, especially if they can go upward, and you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck. So that's a great way to save some money and get more value for what you're spending on your seed if you're planting something that takes up less space but gives you a big bang for your buck. And the last thing that I promised you for this workshop, then I'm going to go back through and look at your comments. 3 things I never thought of until a few years ago, and these really have changed my gardening. After I made these notes, I thought of a couple more things, but I think I'll stick to these 3 things. Asparagus. Can you believe I've been gardening my whole life, and there are so many things I still haven't grown? That's just, food is amazing. There's such great variety, and of course, every single summer, there's something I plant. That's one thing I just love to do, and this does not save money in any way, but I love to plant something new that I've never tried before. Sometimes that means it's going to fail. It's going to waste that space that I planted it. But other times I discover something exciting, like some of the things I'm going to share with you today. Asparagus. Never grew asparagus. My father never grew asparagus. And for me, and probably for Dad, what held me back was that it's perennial. And I am always rotating my crops for the good of the soil and for other reasons too. It's a process to decide where things are going to be planted each year. And I hated the idea of something permanently being in an area of my garden. Like, I was really worried about committing to that, but I've loved it. It was the perfect spot that I chose, and I don't have to do a thing with these asparagus. Well, that's not true. In the fall, you cut them off at the ground and I just pile the dead leaves on them. You could use anything for mulch, pine needles. You could actually use mulch. And that's it, just to keep them hardy through the cold winter. That's it. I do nothing else to these asparagus. So they're so easy to maintain. And I don't have to think about them at all this time of year when I'm planting seeds and planning what I'm going to plant for seedlings. And they're delicious. They're so good. And for at least 6 weeks, sometimes almost 2 months, they are providing vegetable for my dinner table. But here's the best part. Anybody here in a New England or northern region where you have a short growing season? I'm wondering if any of you have told me that. I can't believe that as early as it is, sometimes early May, but definitely by mid-May, I have picked asparagus for my dinner table, which is crazy. As soon as the snow melts away, this asparagus starts going to work, and it is ready to pick so much earlier than anything else in my garden. And that gets me really happy every spring that I have fresh vegetables coming out of my garden. So definitely consider asparagus if you haven't before. Oh, and they're also pest resistant. I mean, I've never had a problem with any pest. I'm on year 5 this year of growing asparagus. And I'll send you a link to some great asparagus to choose from if you come at seed when this is done. Purple broccoli is another thing. Now, I grabbed my seed packet for you, but it doesn't really show you anything because it's not even purple. But if you followed me this last summer, I shared a lot about my purple broccoli. You saw it. It's so cool when you put it in the skillet and it starts to heat up. It actually turns this deep color, almost a black. It's gorgeous in the garden, this purple color. But what I love about it, I've grown broccoli, I don't know how long. I didn't start growing it from seedling or try to grow it from seedling until 5 or 6 years ago. And I thought I had to give up on that because, was it 3 years in a row? I had no success growing broccoli from seeds. And I think it has to do with the variety that you choose. And this particular variety, I'll send you the link to this, is so hardy to grow from seed. So this makes a huge difference for me because if I can start it indoors in mid to late February, and I have a mature seedling ready to go in the ground when the snow is thawed and the ground is ready. I usually plant, I live life on the edge. I plant pretty early here, which has some years meant that I have to cover everything and it can be pretty tedious, but I go for it and I get things in pretty early. So sometimes I'll have them in the first or second weekend of May. But this broccoli is already ready to be established, and that did such a great job for me providing so much more broccoli. But the seedlings are so hardy. Typically a broccoli seedling, let me know if you've had experience with planting broccoli seeds, guys. They're hard to be stocky because they tend to be very, what's the word I want to use? Really thin, feathery, just not a good stocky hardy plant when it's growing from a seed. And I do all the right things. I keep the light right down close to it. I rotate them, but they still just are not a good seedling. I don't know, until I got this variety. And I don't think I'm ever going to go to any other broccoli. I love it, love it, love it. And the last thing I wanted to tell you is popcorn. If you've been following me for years, I do share this every summer too, how I grow my popcorn. I didn't know I could grow popcorn, guys. This actually is a different variety this year than I grew the past 2 years because this year I wanted one that was even better for cornmeal. So this one I specifically grew, not to pop, but to make cornmeal with my mill. But I could pop it as well. In fact, I need to try popping this variety. I'll have to let you guys know how well this one pops, but I'll share the variety with you if you come at seed when this is over. But I had so much trouble growing corn. I still have not. If you guys are in New England and you have grown corn successfully, corn on the cob, please tell me what variety. Because I've heard the other advice, I've heard the wisdom of the garden sages, I've done the things I should, and I'm just not successful with growing corn here. The season is too short. So I decided to switch to popcorn, and I have been so happy with that. I do miss my corn on the cob that I used to grow in the Mid-Atlantic area, but I'm happy with my popcorn. It produces well, it can grow to maturity, and we eat a lot of popcorn here. In fact, we eat more than we grow. So I'll also share with you, if you're into really good popcorn, I'll share with you a link for where I get my popcorn that we use for our air popped corn that we have, I bet you 4 or 5 times a week at least. Some weeks I will have it twice a day, every day. I just love popcorn. It's such a healthy snack, so good and with fiber. So anyway, so those are the things that changed dramatically for me when I decided to try something new. So I hope that gives you some encouragement of some things you might want to try. Let's see. Oh no, Stockburger Teresa said lost sound and doesn't know what happened. Oh no. Wish I'd seen that sooner, Teresa. Anybody else having trouble with sound? If you could comment and let me know, because I'm going to save this so it's available to watch here on Instagram, but I'm also going to download it to send it to YouTube so people who are not on Instagram can still be part of these workshops if they're in my email list. I've already told them that. I hope the sound is working. Somebody let me know. Yay! Lytton 811 is catching me live. She's excited. I'm excited too. I know it is hard to catch me live, and for that reason, I try to always send out the replays for anybody who's signed up for my schedule of my workshops. And lots of people joining. Oh, Sally does not like beets either. Thank you. I just don't get it. Mom would have me try them again and again when I was a teen, and I'd give in and I'd try it. You know, there's this theory, if you try things 12 times, you're going to like it. It's definitely not true. It's not. I don't know this name. I'm so bad. CC Maca. Maca. I can't say it. Moccasin. CC Moccasin Trail says, certain varieties of squash can last as long as 2 years if you have the storage space. On our backcountry homestead, squash is a huge mainstay. That's cool. And there's a lot you can do with squash. You're right. It's just not one of my favorites. But like I said, Kayla really, really likes squash. That's good to know. Thank you. Oh, Moccasin Trail also loves her asparagus. Isn't it amazing? How many years have you been growing it? Like I said, this is year 5 for me. And it is disappointing. I will tell you, if you've not grown asparagus, the first 2 years, you either don't get much, or the second year, you really should let it grow so it can get stronger. So that's discouraging. That does take 3 years. But then, man, once that 3rd year hits, oh, I can't recommend it enough. When do you plant them next to? Not sure what that means, Was it Roxanne? Let me know what you mean. Let's see. Sally says, short growing season in South Dakota. Okay, it's tough, isn't it? Some big challenges. What do you find are your biggest challenges with the short growing season? I tell you, the summers here are so wonderful there, though. Here in New England, compared to the Mid-Atlantic, I'm willing to put up with the short growing season. I try to not be too much of a complainer. Roxanne, what, not when? Oh, okay, when. Wait, what, not when? Let me go back to what your question was. What do you plant them next to? Oh, asparagus? I wonder if that's what you mean. Maybe you'll tell me if I keep scrolling. Lytton, come back and comment seeds once this is over, please. Roxanne, please come back because I won't know you guys did so. Sally said she planted asparagus last year, so won't be able to harvest until 26. Right, last year, correct. It'll be correct. Next year is the first time you're really going to harvest. Some people do harvest that first year, and I'll be honest with you, I couldn't wait. And I harvested just like, I think it was 2, which is silly because it didn't give me enough even for one person for a meal. But I did cut a few off that first year just because I really wanted to taste them. But you're right, you should wait another year. Be good. Moccasin Trail says, I recommend starting with purchasing asparagus roots. You can harvest sooner. Okay, wait, I thought you need to purchase the plant, right? I'm not sure what roots mean. Do you mean the plant with the roots? Because that's the way I bought it. And it's still, from what I understood, I always recommend waiting till the 3rd year to harvest. The company I'm going to recommend to you guys, if you comment seeds, I'll send you all the details and I'll explain how it works with purchasing the asparagus. It's really simple. You do want to order it soon though, because they do sell out. So you order it soon, but they send it at the right time for you. I've had bad luck with corn too. Sally, you can relate to things I'm talking about here. It's hard. No problem with sound. Oh, good. Thank you, Sally. Love the outdoors mom says, how do you keep deer out of your garden? Good question. I'm going to try to, any questions you guys have, I'm going to try to answer them quickly, like I said, so this doesn't get too long. And we're going to be doing 2 more workshops. So send me your questions when I send out that email, and then I know ahead of time and can quickly go through them. You can just reply to the email that I'm going to send you. Deer. A fence has made a huge difference. The first 2 years we didn't have a fence, and it was definitely harder. But even without a fence, also we live in an area where they have so much to eat that they really don't want to bother with my garden because they have the whole woods. There's a lot of wooded area around us. Lavender helps. They hate the smell of lavender, and I planted that in good spots in every bed to keep them away from the bed, and it really did seem to make a difference. Also, shiny, disposable pans that you can like buy a pie in, like the disposable pie pans. Hang those on, I'll put a pole on the ground, I just get a stick and a piece of twine and let that dangle and move around if there's any breeze, and the deer hate that. Those 2 things I found to be very helpful with keeping the deer out. beets are great hot with melted butter, says Love the Outdoors Mom. I am sorry. My mom tried that. I'm just not going to agree. But we can be friends, right? Lytton said, what's the seed company you're talking about? I'm going to send you all the information because I want to send you, if you just go there, you're not going to be able to use the discount code. You have to use a special link that they sent me. They set up a page for me. So I will send you that when you comment. And when this is over. Sally says, have the same challenges as you with the short growing season. I also push when I get plants and seeds in the ground. Peas, broccoli, I plant in late April. Yes, that's a good point. Very early May. I'm not usually late April. Maybe I'll try what you say there, Sally. Usually very early May, I get all those cold weather things in. And Sally says, sticks around the garden strung with fishing line has helped keep deer. Oh, that's interesting. So you don't really notice the fishing line yourself, but they'll trip on it or get caught on it and that will spook them away. That's a really good one, Sally. I haven't thought of that one. Okay, that's it for today. There's lots more coming in the next couple workshops. In our next workshop, let me look at my notes so I don't tell you the wrong thing. The next one I'm going to show you what seeds I bought for this year. That's always fun looking at what somebody's bought for their seeds, right? And we're going to go over the difference in hybrid and heirloom. And we're going to break down, next one is the really meaty one. We're going to break down what you should plant indoors and what can wait until you're outdoors. And then I'm going to give you all the details of how I have decided and figured out ways to not only save money when I'm planting my seedlings, but to literally make money. The past 3 years now, or has it been 4? I have had all my garden produce literally for free and actually made some money. I'm going to break it down for you next workshop. Okay, anything else? Love the Outdoorsman says, tried fencing, fishing line, and pie pans, and nothing worked. Oh, that's tough. Have you tried the lavender? I know it seems so simple, but they hate the smell of it. And if it's a slightly windy day and that's blowing in the breeze, they are literally going to run. So maybe try that one. Okay, thanks guys. Please come back in just a minute if you're watching this live and comment seeds so I can send you everything we talked about, and I'll send you our schedule so you can be part of the next couple lives. Thanks guys, it's been fun. Thanks for joining me.